Hello everyone, welcome back to a brand new video of Fox Flicks on Popcross Studios. Today we're watching part 2 of his Singing Monsters into Fantasy Beasts series. I'll go ahead and move myself over, and let's begin.
Has once again introduced me to a goldmine topic, this time in the form of my singing monsters. My previous episode of taking the creatures from the game and turning them into more fleshed out, monstery versions of themselves has gone over super well, and tons of you left me great suggestions in the comment section of that video for what other monsters you wanted to see me use. Most notably seeing the Furcorn and a version of the Wobox showing up over and over again. So today I'm here to deliver on a sequel, and let's see if I can make it even better than the first episode.
Let's go.
Hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like, but either way, enjoy the show.
Let's go.
My continuing quest to help heal the monsters of song that still remain in my world has led me to some very interesting discoveries. And of course, helping these beasts, who have been unable to share their music for so long, having grown fearful and angry that doing so would lead them to being hunted down, has been a very rewarding experience. One species that used to be one of the more abundant of these breeds of creatures, but since has become endangered, is the furry warblecorn. These beasts are referred to...
Not bad. And a name change for the Furcorn, or whatever he called this thing. The Furry Warblecorn. Kind of sounds like it would be some kind of like small woodland sprite.
Quite frequently in the hymns of the Colossal's religious texts, though not for any significant achievements. They are one of the smaller of the creatures of song, standing at full-grown height of around 11 feet tall, though this can depend on the height of the branches that often sprout from their heads. I managed to find one of these creatures while continuing to spread the word of how the creatures of song can be made more peaceful. A villager mentioned that one of these creatures had been seen...
Look at the eyes. They look like they're gonna be bloodshot. Dang.
...multiple times in the area, though it had not attacked any village residents, but simply appeared horrified any time it saw a human and would sprint away at full bound. The creature was not easy to track down, as it blended in quite seamlessly with the forest growth, but when I did manage to find it, as expected, it spotted me and tried to run away. As quickly as I could, I began to sing my sister's song to calm it, encouraging it to follow suit, showing it that it was safe to make its music once more. This creature must have been much more deeply afraid of making its music than some of the others, as I had to continue to chase it down for quite some time, while singing through winded breath as I ran. Eventually, I took to the skies on my dragon ally Violet, but it finally began to slow down and then stop. It eyed me very anxiously as I sang for quite a while, but soon enough, it finally started in with a warbling note and joined me in song. Now this right here to me is the first A+ drawing of this series. I really love how it turns out. Funny enough, it was a little bit nerve-wracking this one because it's such a simple design, the original version, that
the original design is very simple. It's like they just took a fluff ball, a cotton ball, put it on some toothpicks, and that was it. That was it. You went back on that. And you gave it like proper legs and all. Love it.
I didn't really know what kinds of real-life animals to take inspiration from to flesh it out into a more rendered, realistic sort of beast. A lot of my go-tos for creatures like this would be gorillas, cats, dogs, or lizards. That's often what I pull from in designing monstery sorts of creatures. So for this one, I originally thought maybe a bit of a gorilla face because it's got a very flat face, but that seemed a little bit too menacing and aggressive. So then I was thinking something a bit on the cuter side like a dog, but obviously a lot of dogs have longer snouts, so I thought, okay, flatter face, let's go with a pug. I mean, pugs are very cute, but also have that little bit of a gnarly, wrinkly sort of look.
Could have even gone with a bit of a bulldog, like a Frenchie.
So I thought that was very fitting, so that's the inspiration I pulled for its face. And then for its legs, I was originally thinking a little bit ostrich-like, but then partway through started pulling a little bit more from a T-Rex sort of leg design. Then for the feet, just big, gross-looking human feet. Super pleased with this one. I hope you all like it as much as I do, and let's take a look at how it turned out.
Well, I gotta say, not a bad start for the Furcorn, or whatever the heck the thing's called. But yeah, a good start to part 2. And the series.
After bringing peace to the furry warblecorn, I headed into the mountains now.
Okay, now before we continue on with this, I gotta say, one, I kind of love how he's going with a different design choice of this beast. I forget its name, but I remember this thing is like a very deep throatal guy. And like it goes bomb and all that stuff. So going with this design instead of the basic white, that's kind of interesting. Let's see what he's got.
Next, where I met a small party of people who have actually been doing the same work as myself. I came to a frigid mountain village having heard rumors of a creature of song ravaging the surrounding areas and making hiking quite difficult. But the beast had already been assuaged by Gentleman Tyson and his band of, as they referred to themselves, monster handlers. As they described themselves, they struck me as beast chroniclers, such as myself, but who specifically study the creatures of song, are disciples of the hymns of the Colossals, and have been traveling the world attempting to calm and reintroduce the beasts to their musical nature.
Neat.
They were being celebrated by the mountain village for having succeeded in calming the roaming beast, known as the Frost Mammaton. It is a rare breed of a once more common species, called simply a Mammaton, though this one is prone to living in even colder climates than its common kind.
Yeah.
This group carried instruments along with them to aid in their song, and had trudged through miles of snow with their tools to find and sing to the beast that nearly killed them before they got a chance. But once their music was in full swing, the creature did indeed calm. They hope that it will now revert to its past playful nature. They claim it was once a species that would play games with hikers who came through its region, hiding from them and throwing its voice to make it seem like it was rapidly moving to different parts of the...
Wait, throwing its voice? So you mean to say that this thing is somehow skilled in ventriloquism? I am not pronouncing that right at all, but you know what I mean, puppetry.
Around them. I was eager and fascinated to hear more from these monster handlers, and while their information would eventually, surprisingly, lead us to traveling outside our own universe to learn more, they first regaled me with a dark tale of a sorcerer who once tried to save the monsters of song through very twisted means. His name was Wu Barox. Now, I got a lot of requests from people to do a Mammoth from the game. It's one of the most iconic creatures from the game, but in looking at it, I was like, it's a little bit too simple. It might end up looking like some other creatures I've drawn in the past, so then I looked at other versions of the Mammoth, and I saw the rare Mammoth, and I was like, yeah, I think I like this better. It's similar, but it's got a little bit more to it, a little bit more color variety, and I thought I was going to have a bit more fun with it, and I'm really glad I went with that angle. Obviously, for real-world creature inspiration, a gorilla was a go-to thing to look at. I also looked at a bunch of reference images of different people's depictions of Yetis and abominable snowmen and Bigfoot, and my favorite thing about
it kind of, with the way the horns are, it kind of reminds me of the snow beast from Star Wars on Hoth.
This piece in the end, well, the design still does end up fairly simple, is something I've gotten better at over the last year, maybe 2 years, is just adding subtle little bits of movement to a piece. So one part of this where it's more noticeable is the heel of the creature coming up as it's walking. There's snow kind of falling off it, emphasizing that it's just raised its heel. And then with its mouth, it's doing its roar, so wind would kind of be shooting out from its mouth. So I have its uvula kind of swinging forward a little bit. And then also, as I've done many times before with creature designs, having a bit of saliva just kind of flying out as the creature's roaring. I'd say this is a pretty cool rendition of this creature, and I hope you all agree.
Yeah, I gotta say, this isn't a bad one. I could see this guy kind of being enjoyable to be around. Props. Next.
The last time I did an ad for my online Teespring store while doing a cold plunge, a lot more people paid attention. So
I think I'm gonna pause real quick. We're back, and we're continuing on with finding out more of this Wu Barox person.
Lived a few hundred years ago, in a time when magic more commonly thrived in my world, which of course had great benefits, but also left potential for great chaos. Wu was a zealot of the hymns of the Colossal's faith, and resented the world for hunting down the creatures referred to in its songs. This, of course, is understandable to a degree, but he took things too far, likely even harming many of the creatures he wished to save in an attempt to get revenge. Through long-lost mystical practices, he...
You know, that goes... Many people would probably use the old saying, hey, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. And it's like, yeah, I'm trying to save the species, so I killed some of it. It's like... What?
Created a series of magical boxes. As described by the monster handlers, they sounded to me somewhat otherworldly, as though he utilized technology from other realms to build them, though I can't say for certain. They each possessed a crystalline orb that could create endless supernatural electricity to power the boxes, awakening them into titanic, unkillable monsters to ravage any towns, kingdoms, or villages that had partaken in the hunting of the monsters of song. But in order to fully bring these creations to life, there was one more essential ingredient he needed: the life force of actual monsters of song. He had to quite literally feed monsters into these boxes. Depending on the beast he put in, a box may be able to awaken for 1 to 7 days at a time, and would have an appearance that somewhat reflected the creature consumed. When the monstrosity would power down, he'd then have to give it more and more fuel. Barox's creations did do some serious damage to the nearest towns to his lair, but he was fairly quickly stopped by surrounding kingdoms' forces. He was executed, but his boxes were unable to be destroyed, or even dismantled. Instead, they were buried deep underground in the hope that nobody would ever find them again. For if they did and knew to feed creatures into them, the boxes could awaken to once more wreak havoc upon our world. Now, with this one, there was obviously not much real-world animal inspiration that I could pull for it. I thought about doing a more significant redesign, but I felt like it was kind of more fun just doing a more fleshed-out version, making it more monstery and bigger-looking. The Wobox that I picked was specifically the one that I felt would fit best into a fantasy sort of set.
Honestly, I have no idea what this creature is, but I do have to say, your redesign, frickin' love it.
But as I was designing this, I was really kind of wondering, what do the Wobox's heads actually look like when they're turned? I've only seen them flat-faced on, so I was like, do their eyes actually sit on top of their lips? Or do they sit farther back and there's an actual full head in behind the mouth? I kind of had to just make that up as I was going, but I'm fairly happy with what I ended up coming up with. I also really like playing around with lightning and electricity on any creature or character designs, so it was really fun having some chaotic lightning just going through all of its limbs, even putting a little bit more on its head. And near the end of this piece, I was pretty happy with it, but I found there wasn't enough focusing us in on the creature's actual head, leading us up towards that. I wanted it to feel like there was a little bit more intentional focus in the drawing, so I changed the gradient in the sky in the background from being a flat one going from the ground up to being a radial one leading us in towards its head, and I had a moon in behind its head. I faded out a little bit to just help pull us that much more towards the creature's head, and I think those final touches end up really making this that much nicer of a piece, and I hope you're all pleased with how it turned out, because lots of people requested the Wobox.
Okay, so this thing has got a Wobox, and I have to say, that is amazing artwork. And he's right, that does really bring focus onto the face. Love it.
While I of course heeded the threat of Wu's creation's awakening, they didn't strike me as an urgent matter. The handlers weren't even certain where the boxes were buried, and other things they informed me of had much more present possibility. They told me that they strongly believed a mystical land referred to in the hymns truly existed, and that a magic user of mighty enough skill could transport themselves there, where hundreds, possibly even thousands of monsters of song still lived in peace, far from the prying eyes and weapons of humanity. I could have written this claim off fairly easily, but the more they spoke, the more sense it began to make. What they described to me simply sounded like a pocket dimension. Having explored the multiverse a fair amount now, I am well aware that some universes have these. Smaller dimensions that can only...
Pocket dimensions are pretty much in everything you can think of. And I mean, anything.
...only be accessed through those universes. Given I already had the ability to transport myself between dimensions, as the overseer of my world, I informed them that magic wouldn't even be a necessity, and with their information and some searching myself, I was eventually able to open a gateway to the sanctimous lands they sought. As I arrived, I noticed that it didn't appear like a land humans were meant to see. Looking into the distance, I couldn't even fully comprehend what was around us, but we did indeed appear on a fluffy stretch of land on which were many creatures of song, creating their music in peace. Most did not even stop upon our arrival. Some smiled or nodded, some even waved, but most continued on with their music.
peaceful.
One of the creatures that fascinated me most was what I referred to as the Zajin Fairy. It looked frightening, though acted friendly, but when I stepped too close to it, my vision skewed, and I'd come to seconds later finding I'd walked away from the creature. I spent the better part of a day there, logging as many creatures as I could, as did the handlers. They even requested that I leave them here for a week, though with no certainty on what they could eat, or even if time moved the same in this place. I told them that that would be irresponsible of me, but that I would be willing to bring them back, as I too had more questions about these creatures that could
Yeah, rule number 1 of traveling between realms, unless you know how time walks in that realm compared to your home realm, don't ever request to be left there.
likely only be answered here. It was even worth asking, should we bring other monsters of song to this place to live in greater peace? Now, the most liked comment on the previous video at the time of recording comes from someone named Beeble who suggested that I do any creature from the Magical Sanctum. And to me, that was really fun because I got to go, alright, let's take a look at the list of creatures in there and just see which one pops out to me most. And the one that I liked the design of most was the Jin. I just thought it was really cool, and I really like any creature that has some kind of crystalline forms added to it. I feel like in my art style it adds some nice variety. I've talked before about how I really like drawing creatures that have some kind of ice element to them, or not even creatures, like superheroes, whatever, and I like doing crystal sort of forms for the same reason. When I do forms like that, I'll usually color the line work to a similar color of the crystal, ice, whatever, and I think that does add some nice contrast to the piece. In terms of real-world creature design, I was pulling a little bit of inspiration from baboon faces. That's probably not super noticeable because I didn't end up going with a furry sort of texture for this creature, which I think might have worked, but I wanted more variety, and I already had 2 creatures in this episode with furry sorts of looks, and I knew...
Even then, I don't see this creature being furry. I could see it kind of being slick, like a beluga.
Those ones were supposed to have fluffy, furry kinds of textures. So this one I ended up going with a bit more of a scaly, dragon sort of skin, and I think that does end up looking pretty cool. The only element of this drawing that I don't really end up liking very much is what I do with the background sky. I was trying to make it look different from just a regular sky because we're in a pocket dimension, so I was trying to go with some sort of ethereal, flamey sort of texture, but make it kind of light so it's far in the background, and it just ends up looking a little bit like a wallpaper more than like some kind of distant sky or something. I don't think it's bad enough to make this drawing a combo breaker from this episode. I am happy with how all 4 drawings turned out, but if I'd been willing to make more time with this drawing, that's definitely the thing I would have fixed. Anyway, I hope you all like our 8th My Singing Monster, and let's take a look at how it turned out.
I have to say, I kind of like it. It's creepy, yet it also says, wise beyond years.
This is definitely in the same ballpark quality-wise as the first episode, but I think I took this one up a little bit of a notch above the last one. And I'm
Completely agreed.
quite pleased about that. And I'd love more suggestions for what other monsters you'd like to see me use from the game. I'm definitely open to doing a 3rd round of this, or I could branch out and do something else, like turn them into Marvel superheroes, or even turn them into suits of fantasy armor set in this same universe. But give me whatever ideas you got in the comments. Also, the next episode coming out on this channel on Friday is going to be a compilation of my previous Phobias as Demons episodes, but with one brand new story and artwork at the very start of the episode. And I made sure to make it a good one, but I'm putting that out so I can take a few days off over the holidays. I hope you all enjoy that, and besides that, that's all for today, except of course we're ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note, and I actually want to end on the very
Alright, tell us that positive or uplifting note you got on mine, bro.
first positive or uplifting note that I ever used on the channel when I started doing this at the ends of my videos a little over a year ago, which is that what you marinate your mind in is the kind of person you will become. So if you spend all your time listening to, reading, watching things that make you scared and angry, that's how you're going to respond to life more naturally, whether your external circumstances seem good or bad. Whereas if you spend your time listening to stories of people who are inspiring and uplifting and have gone through great adversities to become the best versions of themselves, then you're naturally going to become a more motivated, inspired, and optimistic person. I believe that more so now than when I said it a little over a year ago, and I've recently been listening to Ed Milet's podcast while I've been working, who interviews so many inspiring people, and that lately has been what's been helping me be more optimistic and inspired. I'll link it in the cards, it's pretty great. I hope that...
Well, folks, that's what we're going in today's video. I hope you all enjoyed this. Link will be in the description. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. And I'll see all of you folks next time when we flick on. Peace out.